Now, welcome everybody and a happy International Biodiversity Day to you all. The 22nd of May has been International Biodiversity Day. It's the UN Convention on Biological Diversity has elected this day as International Day for Biodiversity. It has been part of our festival since the day was established. And we're very delighted that it happens to be in May, and that we can incorporate it into our festival, as we have indeed incorporated the Fascination of Plants Day and the Bee Day. So this is kind of the big day of the festival. And normally, of course, we'd be out and about in some lovely locations around the southeast of Ireland. But unfortunately, this year we couldn't plan for that. So we're meeting you online. And the advantage of that, of course, is that we can have people from every part of Ireland and from abroad. So you're all very welcome to share this with us. And next year, we will be going out and about, and we hope to welcome many of you here in person. And also, we will be keeping an online strand so that we can engage with you all online as well. So later on, we're going to have a talk from Yvonne Grace, who is a plant scientist at Waterford Institute of Technology. And she is a big proponent of No Mow May. And if you've been with us on earlier programs, you will surely have heard us banging on about No Mow May and to leave room for our pollinators. And that's going to be a very, very informative presentation. Now, what has been happening? Well, we've had received loads of pictures sent in by email, by Twitter and Facebook, and you should be able to see the contact points at the bottom of your screen. So we have one more day to go, and that will be a wrap-up show tomorrow, and we have a very special guest um, joining us as well, and I'll give you more details about that later. This is our penultimate competition, and we ask people to take pictures of waterways. And we have got some loads and loads of pictures. It's great that showed that people were able to get out and about, and that's great. And it was inspired, of course, by our visit to Carrick-on-Suir Blueway yesterday, and that was really a fascinating talk and really a treat. With all aspects of biodiversity covered, and I had a lot of people in touch saying how they just can't wait to get down to the Blue Way. So that's terrific. I'm going to show you some of our pictures now that we got. We asked about for waterways, and we got one from Tracy McEnany, and this represents the west of Waterford. This is the Colligan River flowing through Colligan Woods, and that is, of course, near Dungarvan in the west of Waterford. So thank you very much, Tracy. And Tracy is always busy on social media, and she's always tweeting wonderful things and putting things on Facebook. So check Tracy out. She's with Waterford Libraries. And that is, thank you, Tracy. And we move along, see what else we have here. We have one from Sheila Donegan, would you believe? Sheila Donegan has been working in the background all week on the festival, and this is a photograph taken down at Ballinkill, just on the suburbs of Waterford City, and that's the Suir River. Look in the channel between Waterford and the island with Waterford Castle on it. and the mud flats are seen by some maybe as not too pretty, but they're certainly pretty in that photograph, catching the sunlight. So well done, Sheila. Next, we have a series of photographs from Julie Quinlan, and these are along the Copper Coast. A lovely picture of the rock formations curving down to the sea, and there's a lot going on in those, and we can see a lot of barnacles and limpets on the rocks there. And Julie also sent us another picture, and that's a lovely, stunning picture postcard view of the Copper Coast. And who wouldn't want to pack your bucket and spade and your swimming togs and head down there? And of course, we'll have loads of time over the summer to catch up on all these wonderful places. Next, we have a group of pictures from Stephen O'Reilly, and Stephen shared these with us earlier in the week at the start of the festival, and absolutely worth showing again. Stunning pictures of a double rainbow. It's rare to see the double rainbow, the second rainbow, so full there. And now I know the picture going out is slightly stretched for your screens, so it's given a little bit of a stretched rainbow. It looks a little bit unnatural, but that is stunning photograph. And that is I don't know how to pronounce it, but Tikincore Castle. I don't know how my pronunciation is, but it comes from T Kion Cora, is, I think, the where it gets its name, the house of the head of the weir, and that's because it is actually on the banks of, guess where, the River Suir, just outside Clonmel. And there on the left, you see a glimpse of the Blue Way, exactly where we were last night. And it's nice there how the house, the T Kinkor Castle, is framed between the inner and outer rainbow. So that is a wonderful picture, and that's taken from Sir Thomas's Bridge in Clonmel, and that bridge was built in 1690. Would you believe, the year of the Battle of the Boyne? So history, physics, and biodiversity, all in that photograph. So thank you very much, Stephen. And next we have a couple of photographs from Jonathan Power, and this one is showing the power of the sea, the power of the elements. And I'm reminded of Tennyson with this: break, break, break on thy cold grey stones, O sea, would that I could utter, would that my tongue could utter the thoughts that arise in me. And when our tongues fail us, our photograph can paint or can tell a thousand words. I'm getting mixed up in my metaphors here, but that's a wonderful, powerful image of nature. And to contrast with this, Jonathan sent us another one, and this is, I think, the Suir from the Waterford Greenway, and this is an absolute picture of tranquility, literally, and beautiful, absolute mirror-like surface of the river, absolutely quiet, and that is a stunning picture. So thank you, Jonathan. And we move on now, and we have a series of pictures from Anne Nolan. And Anne has been busy all week sending us in pictures, and some really excellent pictures as well. She's lovely ones of the pollinators. And this is Waterford, the estuary south of the city. And this next one is of Cheek Point, and old fishing boat and the other fishing boats. And this next one, and I think this is today's winner, because it tells such a story, such a story about biodiversity and the environment, because we have Great Island Power Station there, and that reminds us of all the carbon emissions that are generated on our behalf. I might emphasize all the electricity we use, and then we have the fishing boats, and of course that's linked with taking fish from the sea, which if done in balance is perfectly good, but our fish stocks are seriously depleted. And then in the foreground there's the wonderful meadow, natural growth there of dandelions and daisies, and that of course links in with our pollinator day on Thursday, and indeed what we're talking about today. So Anne, you're the winner today of our competition, and we'll announce the competition for tomorrow. We'll announce it at the end of the show. So on that note, with a beautiful picture of daisies and dandelions, we're going to meet Yvonne Grace, who I mentioned is a plant scientist and a lecturer at Waterford Institute of Technology, and she's going to tell us why we shouldn't mow in May and what we can do to create a biodiverse, rich environment through plants.
Hi everyone. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about biodiversity and how we can help to record biodiversity and start to make observations and even monitor biodiversity in our local areas or where we live. So the term is basically encompassing for all species, so all living species on our planet, plants, animals, fungi.
Owen, the sound is on.
Biodiversity. And
okay, sorry about that.
Look at mostly plants because my name is Yvonne Grace. I'm a horticulture lecturer in WIT in Waterford, and I teach soil science, plant science, biodiversity and horticulture. So those are my main interests. And what we can start to do when we start to record biodiversity without even knowing our plants or our plant names, you can start noticing the different shapes and colours, and it's that kind of variation that helps support different insects like our bees, our butterflies, our hoverflies and things like that. So it's that type of richness that we want to promote. This is a picture in the background of the Olympic Park in London in 2012. And at that time, they landscaped the whole area and they planted or sowed, well, they planted 4,000 trees, I think, something like that. And they also sowed 10 football pitches, 10 football-sized pitches worth of wildflower meadows as well. So a huge undertaking, but that was the kind of start of it, you know, like that many years ago was the start of this kind of gardening revolution, looking back to nature and taking nature as inspiration. So I guess a lot of the time when we talk about biodiversity and climate change, it can be on the negative, but we're going to look at solutions today. But habitat destruction is one of the biggest problems that we're facing in Ireland. So it's the loss or the degradation of the natural living area for individuals or populations of organisms. So what that means is when we cut down hedgerows, when we cut down trees, when we take out riverbanks, when we build, you know, concrete roads, tarmac roads, bridges, housing, all those things have to replace nature. You know, they take space, they take up space, and that's called habitat destruction. And when you interrupt that space, that's called habitat fragmentation. And our urbanization and our, you know, kind of our suburban sprawl, that can cause habitat fragmentation on a huge scale. So we really need to look at how we can join up the dots, how we can actually bring back these green areas. And that's one of our big solutions today, looking at green corridors, connecting up areas and giving them greater values. Because in ecological terms, to have connection is to have strength, is to build resilience. Okay, so that's really what we're going to talk about today. And one of the ways we can do it is through grassland restoration. Okay, so we, as an everyday citizen, we can start to become more observant. We can look at how our grasslands are managed in our public parks, our verges, our motorways, our fields, our gardens, our public parks, our playing pitches, our wastelands. There's so many green areas that we can just start to take notice of. Right, okay, what's going on here? What kind of habitat are they creating or providing for how many different species, So that's what we're going to look at. So wildflower meadows, when we say a wildflower meadow or a flowering meadow, what do we think of? So do we kind of jump to this image on the left-hand side of the screen where it's, the poppies, the red poppies are there. The orange are actually Californian poppies, so they're not native to this country. There's blue there, so that might be, your corncockle or your cornflower, which is native. There's a few pinks in here, which could be some kind of a geranium species or a scabious. So that type of thing is what we kind of expect when our county councils leave public areas unmown and say there's going to be a flowering meadow. This is maybe what we expect. But really, in reality, what happens is on the right, you might get these kind of dandelion type species appearing first. And this is in the college in WIT last year that we started to reduce most of the college grounds. In here, just to the right-hand side, top of the picture, you can see there's an All-Ireland pollinator sign there to say that it's not being mown. And that grass has been left grow a little bit longer. And you can see it's starting to die back. It's starting to senesce. So it's going kind of brown. Now, when people see that, and even when they see this smattering of yellow in the grass as well, they kind of think, it's not being managed. It's a little bit untidy. And how do we get around that? This is what I create. This is what horticulturalists create and gardeners create. It's this like boom of color, and this is not natural. Okay, this is like putting like a tropical rainforest in an oak woodland. Okay, we have in Ireland, more subdued colours. We don't have these hot purples and pinks occurring together and oranges. So this is a kind of a mishmash of American style prairie planting. Okay, so you do have different heights of plants, right? And you do have lots of colours. And that's all very favourable for attracting insects. And that's kind of what's being sold. And us as gardeners and gardening programmes on television have a little bit of responsibility to take for sending out this message. So in reality, I want to just show you what really happens. And again, these are more photographs from WIT. So this is our ARC labs, in front of our ARC labs. And from, I'd say probably March, April, this wasn't mown, okay? And it's like a golf course. The groundskeeper keeps this place really, really manicured. And you can see there's a kind of a couple of, meters of a path along by the building. And then this was left. So what happened here was all the little short flowering. So there's bird's foot trefoil in there and self-heal. So it's yellows and purples and really soft grasses came through here, really, really fine. So if you think about the way this building occurred, okay, it's not that old. It was dug out. The foundations were dug out. This is kind of the top of a spoil heap, okay? So what's underneath that is disturbed ground and it's not very fertile. So it absolutely favours wildflowers growing over the grass, okay? This is a site that was cleared for an engineering building in WIT as well. So what's happened here is the seeds that were in the seed bank in the soil have become disturbed, okay? This was just a mucky surface, rocks and things. Now you have things like your daisies and, your, I can't think of the name of them now, like meadowsweet and cow parsleys, yeah, all those kind of daisy family type flowers, okay, that have multi-flowers on top, okay? Queen Anne's lace is a common name for some of these as well. And you have your gorse. So gorse colonize. So when you have a meadow, And if it was allowed to complete its succession, what happens is you get your annuals, which are your big, bright colours like these, your poppies, okay? They set seed all in 1 year. They complete their life cycle all in 1 year, and they don't come back if conditions aren't favourable. Why aren't conditions favourable in the second year? Because generally we cut this out, the grass takes over again. It's all too fertile. Or we cut the grass and we let the clippings fly, and that sends the nitrogen back into the soil. So really what you're talking about is a kind of a poor, infertile soil is what you need to promote this kind of growth. And that can be difficult to achieve. So this is just a little up close photograph of the picture I showed you a minute ago. And you can see like there's several, if you counted the different species within that, you'd probably come up with about 10, 15 different species in that short kind of area, which is really what you're looking for. And you can call that a really biodiverse or a rich species grass. To my mind, sometimes if you have a garden, a bare patch of soil, you want to have a quick result, I think it would be better to grow something like this, which is Phacelia. Okay, so it's a green manure. The bees absolutely love it. You can sow the seed, it'll grow within about 3 weeks and flower within 5 weeks, okay, 3 to 5 weeks when the weather conditions are good. So around now, which is May, you could sow this and it'll be flowering in June. And it's a brilliant plant because it tops up its nectar really quickly. So when the bees are foraging, they can come back around, in a very short space of time on a sunny day and drink fill again of nectar. If you have poor ground that's low in organic matter, you might want to grow something else in it next year. You can chop all this down when it stops flowering and integrate it back into the soil, and it adds organic matter back into the soil. You can rot it down. So that's what we kind of use. Those kind of catch crops or cover crops are called as well. So this was an area that was kind of dug over. It was, it's in a raised bed. It was left bare. The soil would be depleted. It would be, the rain, kind of weeds would grow there, like big thistles and things like that are not in keeping of the kept landscape of the grounds of the college. So there's a place for thistles and nettles, but it wasn't here, so we decided a quick fix would be to sow this. So new meadows, what you're talking about, they flower over summer for about 12 weeks, and then you have to kind of expect that they're not going to be this full blaze of colour. They do change. So in Ireland, if we allow natural meadow to kind of come back, okay, so you stop mowing the grass, you see what's there, you can expect to have yellows, purples, whites, all those kind of softer colours. You're not necessarily going to get reds, purples, blazing oranges. And all of those things serve our native insects and therefore our native birds. And all those things are supported then all through the summer, which is absolutely brilliant. When we buy in, kind of Mediterranean type seed mixes or, that kind of American style meadow mixes, they're not necessarily supporting our native bees and bumblebees and birds. Okay, so we kind of have to be a little bit mindful of that, especially in public areas. Fine in our gardens, but we need to be careful and mind our native plants in our public areas. Sometimes meadows need a little helping hand, so you can sow something like this, which is called yellow rattle, okay, or there's euphrasia. So both of these are what's called a semi-parasitic plant. And what they do is they send down their roots, they attach to the grass roots, and what they're effectively doing is they're stealing the sugars from the grass. That weakens the grass, it stops their growth, they can't grow tall, they start to kind of die back, and the wildflowers get a little kind of a leg up, okay, so they can outcompete the grass. So things like that can be sown to help you get rid of your grass rather than using a herbicide like glyphosate or something like that. Finish up with a couple of photographs to show you what I mean by recognizing, noticing different shapes. You don't need to know your flowers, but just know that, look at this kind of flower here up on the right hand side has a buff-tailed bumblebee on it. This flower is many hundreds of flowers in the one head. Okay, so it's Hylotelephium or sedum. They used to be called sedum spectacle, but they're brilliant. They flower like in August. Okay, so that's a later flower. So he can like walk around there, or she can walk around there and drink away to its heart's content. This is like a heath bumblebee, little small heath bumblebee, and you'll start to recognize these. They're kind of blonde, but they have a heart-shaped face, kind of a long face as well, and they're on the heathers. Okay, so they have a long tongue. They like going into the kind of tubular shaped flowers. Again, this was only taken a couple of weeks ago. It's in my garden, but this is an ornamental plant, so it's Pieris japonica, but again it has that bell-shaped flower, and because it was one of the only flowers in my garden, it attracted this red-tailed bumblebee, so Bombus lapidarius. Later on in the summer, this is a big artichoke. So this is a great plant. Sometimes I've counted about 6 or 7 different insects in here having a drink. So there's some kind of little hoverfly in here. So that's not a wasp. It's not always, a wasp always has a real little cinched in waist, okay, like it has a corset on. So it'll have a very distinctive head, thorax and waist, cinched in waist. Anything that's flat like this, that the head runs into the body, that's probably a hoverfly, okay. It has 2 wings, not 4. Your bumblebee has 4. These generally won't sting you either at all. This is a fly, okay? This is a hoverfly. See the big bug eyes on him here? You just don't see that on a bee, okay? So they will not have pollen sacs either on their legs, the hoverflies, but they still need a drink too. So good to see him there. So look, just here's the little picture on the bottom right hand side of the pollen sacs. So you can see the bee is kind of moving its way around that plant. It brushes the pollen down onto pollen sacs on its hind legs, and it's kind of like a bit of a hinge on their back leg. They pack in the pollen and they create these kind of little patties on their legs to bring back to the hive. These are just regular kind of little carder bees. They're a type of bumblebee as well, on a scabious. So this is an ornamental scabious, but these occur in the wild as well. If any of you live near the Wicklow Mountains or kind of upland areas, really, you can see lots of field scabious, which are a purple flower. Okay, this is a cream flower. Bottom left-hand corner is an ashy mining bee. So these guys do not live in hives. They're solitary bees. So they live in the ground. So any kind of sand banks or earth banks, dry banks that are warm, south facing, they'll burrow a little hole. They'll come back out, they'll back in, they'll lay the egg, they'll pack in a pollen patty for the larvae to eat as it grows, and it'll pupate and come out and hatch. So they kind of are starting to come out now, solitary bees. So you might see them, if any of you have a dry stone wall in your school or wherever you are, they're really valuable as well. And you might see little tiny holes. And it could be these guys. Using it for a nesting site. Our bumblebees, look, I rescue bumblebees from my house loads of times. They don't sting. Try not to kill them. I know some of you might be squeamish about picking one up, but usually they're lethargic, they're tired. If they're after being trapped inside, they need to have a drink. So if you can scoop them up with, like a plastic carton or a newspaper or something, and shoo them outside, give them another little chance. So you can see from this, like, these are all different species of bees. So you have your bumblebee, your solitary bee, bumbles again, and bumbles. And just another little buff-tailed bumblebee as well. So sometimes they're quite small. They're not always. This could be a queen here. She's quite big. So look, if you can at all, the first thing to do would be, to stop mowing the grass, or encourage whoever, that cuts the grass to stop maybe mowing in May. So No Mow May is a hashtag that's going at the moment. If you have really kind of good fertile meadows, if you can wait till after July when it sets seed, that would be absolutely brilliant. Cut it, take it away. If you have, the really rich meadow, you cut it once and you leave it till September. Margins are an option too if you don't have a huge area. A strip, okay, so a couple of meters wide and long. These are kind of all on farmland margins, but you could create something like that as well on a school ground or a park, or encourage, whoever manages the grounds near you on a public green, a housing estate, to maybe have just a strip of wildflowers even. And all the better if you have trees near it, because it just increases the biodiversity and the value of it goes up. So what are we doing? Why are we creating these green corridors? They're basically places, they're a safe passage for animals to move between habitats. They provide food and shelter and breeding sites. They provide overwintering habitat for all our insects. They, provide biodiversity within themselves. So they're different food sources for different species. So our wild carrot, common sorrel, cow parsley, we've all used these in different, over the ages. Not we have all, but us as humans have used them. And our ground nesting birds as well. So something like the curlew, which is becoming really a threatened species in this country, would have nested in long grass that's now cut for silage. So these are the people you need to go to for your information. The National Biodiversity Data Centre has all your monitoring guidelines up, freely available online. They have these really brilliant posters and ID cards on how to identify the butterflies of Ireland, and you can get ones there for bees, for bumblebees as well. They also have videos as well. So you can click on any of those videos. They're short, 10 minutes. And this is the flower insect timed count that I was talking about as well, that we can all do and become citizen science. All you have to do is load it up on your phone. You can download the app. It's really quick and easy. And there's our link. So look, I hope I've encouraged you all to get out there, to start observing, noticing what's around you in terms of biodiversity, and to become a citizen scientist. That's really hard to say. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. That was a wonderful presentation. There was a lot in it. Unfortunately, Yvonne can't be with us for questions, but we do have Sean Keane here with us, and Sean is a graduate of horticulture in Waterford Institute of Technology, and is currently studying for his Level 8 award. Now, Sean is also very active on social media and tweets, which I think it's Sean Keane 1, is it? Sorry, Sean Hort. Sorry,
Sean
you
Hort
better tell us.
Twitter. Yeah, at Sean Hort on Twitter. I'm on it since about 2 months into it. It's been my whole career so far at WIT. It started at WIT, and it's been every day since 2017. So
great.
It's a great place.
Now, Sean.
Yeah.
Sean, you're in Waterford City, and we're going to a lot of the festival so far, and I know you've been with us, has been looking at places in the countryside, and I suppose big areas and that. So we want to focus tonight on the city and what people who live in the city can do.
Yeah.
So firstly, maybe you tell us, how did you become interested in biodiversity?
Well, I've always been interested in it. When I was younger, like back in the 90s, went to a rural school, Cunmore in Newport in County Mayo, and I was never into sport at all. But on the side of our school, there was an old stone wall and a heath, and I used to spend my time waiting for the time of year when the lizards came out, and that's when I got out looking for frogs. Or the only day that the highlight of the year was when. For me, like when I became, it was all about sport in the school. But when we had like a nature day, and I knew where all the trees were in the oak trees and all that, so I've always been into it. But kind of found my way back into it. 2 years ago, I was on work experience at Grantstown Tomatoes, and out the road from here, and I introduced a pollinator plan for them, and I kind of became obsessed with it then, pollinator plant in particular, and I know the city pretty well, every kind of nook and cranny by rivers, all that. I've been in every kind of spot in the city collecting seed and plants, so I know it fairly well, the area.
Okay, great. And well, you're the very man we need this evening. Tell me, just in terms of Waterford City, now we'll get on to gardens, private gardens in a minute, but what are the major biodiversity corridors in the city?
Well, I suppose from where Wish is itself, there used to be a river, the Lisduggan River, like Lismore Park used to be a mad, and where the IT is used to be a massive marshy meadow, like a damp meadow, and the river is culverted there now. but still along at Lismore Park and on Lismore Lawn, there's still a wildlife corridor there, large amount of bramble and stuff, and so that runs. It comes out again down across from the glass factory, and it runs right down along the side of the old Kilbarry dump, the eco park, and into the river. So that'll be a major corridor there, and then it connects to John's River, and then outwards towards the bog, and then John's River, of course, right flows into the shore. So that's a major corridor there that I have focused on. That's been my main focus has been that. So when I selected, like, when we did a bee hotel project for our thesis. We surveyed bee hotels on the Greenway, and I came up with a new design, or not came up with it, like I just built one based on the literature. But when I was selecting it, one of the main features of when you're installing a bee hotel is that you must have ample forage in terms of nesting resources and food resources within 300 meters of the nest. Bumblebees like up to 1500 meters, honeybees 5k, but solitary bees need within 300 meters. So I found that at the Wick campus, the picture behind me here, the Wick campus, the Brownstown Road lawn is full of wildflowers. It's absolutely chock-a-block. Like, if you were to let the whole thing go, it'd be good. And so I selected that also based upon that corridor, which runs the Lisduggan River as well. So that's
okay. Well, could you?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, what sort of biodiversity would you see along that corridor?
You'd see a lot of.
Particularly, let's say mammals. Have we any mammals?
We have.
In that. Sorry.
We would have mammals. Yeah, there's foxes. Foxes been seen here at Lismore Park. There's rabbits in the college currently. There's probably other mammals as well, of course. But that's all I've seen so far. I'm sure there's numerous little small mammals in that, but there are definitely the foxes on the go, and the rabbits currently seem to have appeared in the college. It seems to be actually in the meadow itself there behind. There's holes after appearing. But a lot of pollinators, a lot of birds. I even seen snipe at the college the last day, which could be like they're kind of a water that could have something to do with the fact it used to be what the area used to be like, and I don't know.
Or maybe it's not too far over to the Kilbarry Nature Park.
That's it too.
Which of course used to be, as you say, it used to be a dump.
Yeah.
And now it's converted or
remediated, as
restored, as remediated. I'm looking and searching for the word. Yes. And now, tell us something about the Kilbarry Nature Reserve.
Oh yeah, basically I've actually started spending a lot of time there. Basically, what it is, it's we study this as well in horticulture, of course. It used to be a dump, which was actually just bad planning, typical of Ireland, just built on a bloody SAC, and Europe wasn't happy and they had to do something about it. Maybe I shouldn't be saying these things, but it's capped. The dump is capped. There's a layer, there's a thick layer, there's whatever, like a membrane capped over, and then a couple of meters of soil, and then it was seeded with wildflowers, and it's been turned as a walk that goes the whole way, like a type of the Greenway. And there's pipes connected to it to allow the methane to burn off. So you pass that when you're walking around, because it needs to be burnt off, otherwise it could cause a disaster, And I suppose there's systems in place. There's reed beds and stuff like that around it as well, which try to filter out any of the heavy metals and effluent before it enters John's River. But it's quite nice.
So
sorry, go on.
And what sort of birds and insects and would you find around the nature park there now?
Well, at the moment, anyway, in terms of I was down there, I seen a couple of, like, it's very hard to identify solitary bees beyond the common ones for an amateur like myself. But there's a lot at the minute. There's an awful lot of very important species of plant that grows over there. Would be the clovers and vetches, meadow vetchlings. which for bumblebees and bees in general, like us, I think most people know that peas are good for you and they're full of pollen, or they're full of protein. It's the same for bees. The pollen and then plants is very high in protein. So it's excellent at this time of year, just coming out. Like, I'm starting to see a lot of worker bumblebees around now, so there's excellent quality food for rare and young bees. There's a lot of different birds. I wouldn't be awful up on birds. It wouldn't be I'm more of a pollinator guy, but there's a lot of bird activity down that part of the town. Like, you've got the bog there as well, so there's a lot going on.
Yeah. So I think.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah. We saw otters yesterday. So or sorry, the day before. Was it yesterday? I'm getting mixed up now.
The day before we seen the otters.
Oh, that's right. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Paul.
Always a welcome sight.
Welcome, thank you.
Yeah. So we're okay. Sorry, we need to mute there. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So otters are of course, it's a real treat to see otters, and that is a sign that a habitat is healthy. I think if there's otters present.
Species.
Yeah. So now maybe we'll get on to gardens, and I think a lot of people here may have gardens, and so fire your questions or comments, and if you've things people want to share, put them in the chat, or we can talk to you directly. But you had there was a question here from Ben. Is saying, in preparing banks for bees, should we strip large patches or small? He has a derelict site in an urban area which they are rewilding, and what can we do to encourage habitats? Okay,
so they reckon anything from 12 inches square of bare soil, but it's important to leave it until late September, October, when the bees have finished nesting, rather to disturb them than now. So you're looking for a southeast facing location. Slope. Some of the solitary bees like to nest in a slope. Some of them will nest in flat bare patches in your lawn. So it's nice to have a mixture of the kind of slope and the slope or the kind of bare patches in your lawn. Like, I've seen a lot of videos of late on Twitter in England and stuff like that, in parks where there's a lot of activity of dogs walking and humans disturbing the ground, and you get the ashy mining bees going mad, forming massive aggregations in little patches throughout the lawn. So so around October, if you can pull back the vegetation on the bank, or you can create if the soil in the bank is too heavy, too much clay, I think the recommendation is to add up to 65% sand. So you could go in with sand into it to break up the aggregate a bit. And then from that year on, the only management will be if there's any plants starting to re-emerge in that bank come springtime. You could pull them out then, or you could also, I suppose, cover it over with a cover to stop it eroding away, or that for the time being, only if you're sure there's no bees already nesting in it. But then you have the option of a bee hotel, which they only help up to, like, most of the bees live in those bare soil past 60 to 62 species, and then 10 species can in Ireland live in a bee hotel, the cavity nest and solitary bee. But it's nice to have that with it, because you can kind of, what I would say about them bees is they're characters. Do you know what I mean? A lot of them, they build their nests in cool ways. Like, some of them use mud, some of them use leaves of roses, and then you have the wool carder bee, Antinium malacatum, which is resident in Waterford, and they like to use the stachys genus, your woundworts, your marsh woundwort and your hedge woundwort. They like to spin the wool off them plants to build their nest in drill holes or reed cavities. But the bear, if you're lucky enough in your garden to have a site for bare soil, it's amazing. It's an amazing thing to watch. At the college, I just bought an SLR there a few weeks ago, and I had spotted last year. I'd spotted the cuckoo bee nomada Nomada marshmallow feeding on a cotoneaster at the college, but I didn't know where they were nesting. But I got a theory that I got an inkling that the bank facing Luke Wadding, facing the college, it's facing due south, that they'd be there. And I went down there 2 weeks ago, and surely be to God, I seen there was a lot of the cuckoos flying around, and it's covered in Mypex currently. Do you know what I mean? I'd like to see that removed or that. But the bees have found where the old plants were planted into the Mypex. They go down, you can see them going down below the ivy and nesting. I think it's the early mining bee and Clark's mining bee. And then you see the little cuckoo bees are almost wasp-like. They're in the same family as the honeybee, Apidae. And you see them, it's quite exciting to see them.
Okay, I mean, and I suppose it's an example of what's there when you start looking.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Ben's embankment will be alive with all these species. And of course, Ben, you can find guides to those species on the Living Earth website.
I bought this book of late there. What's his name? Stephen Falk, the field guide to the bees of Britain and Ireland. I believe it's the first field guide when it was published since 1886 for the England.
Wow.
And it's absolutely fantastic, and he offers help on Twitter. You know what I mean? But you can't. You have to be kind of on the ball. You don't want to come up just show him a solitary bee saying it. You need to have done a little bit of work, but he gives you help in identifying them as well, which is great. It's great incentive.
Okay, great. We have a question, Sean, from Mary O'Riordan.
Yeah.
And she's asking, can you suggest any pollinator-friendly plants that can be grown in pots on a balcony?
Yeah, absolutely. So she could grow on a balcony something like your so the top ones I'd recommend would be any of the verbenas. Depending on the size of your balcony, you get some of the smaller verbena lollipop, the smaller one. Like I grow verbena barnariensis in my garden. It's been scientifically proven by research Dave Gouldson was involved in to be best plant for bumblebees. Any of your herbs, things like dwarf rosemary, thyme, and mints are very incredibly important for bees because they're really rich in nectar for adult bees. Your geraniums, your cranesbill, if you could get like cranesbill geranium roseanne, that's a fantastic plant. It flowers all year. If you put it in a pot, it sprawls quite well, but it'll hang down. If you had a nice big pot, it'll hang down over the side, kind of trail. But it flowers over a long season. It'll flower from June through till October time. So it's really good for solitary bees.
So there's sorry, I've interrupted you there, Sean. I was just going to say that there's some great suggestions, Mary, and of course what you're saying there. Of course, a lot of plants that people would favour anyway, and growing mint and thyme, and would have of course you can use them in the kitchen as well.
That's an important. Exactly.
Would it be true to say that plants that smell well are attractive to pollinators?
I think so. Oh, absolutely. A lot of the scent. There would be in that. One plant I'd say that I grow that everybody should grow as well and grow on a balcony if you could fit one is Agastache foeniculum. It's an East hyssop. It's a plant native to North America. It was very important to the Native Americans. It's real aniseedy kind of licorice scent, but the pollinators go mad. And it's just a lovely plant. Just like that's why if you're on a balcony, why not grow flowering herbs or borage for its flowers that you can freeze them into ice cubes on a sunny day. I think in terms of the balcony, I would go for those culinary herbs that flower for the bees. Your mints, stuff like that. If you could get in some coriander as well, or plants like that. I read that there's not enough, people aren't growing enough in the carrot family. Those lacy flowers, like Yvonne showed a picture there of the engineering site I took last year. It was Daucus carota, wild carrot. I collected seed of. it's extremely important for some of the more smaller little solitary bees, those little tiny lacy flowers. So if you grew chervil or coriander, they would substitute for that, do you know what I mean? And that when they're likely to bolt anyway, so stuff like that, do you know what I mean? It's a different, try get different structure, different families, stuff from different families of plants tends to be good, do you know what I mean? It gets wider variety, diversity of bees.
Great advice. There, Mary, you have plenty to go on. Mary Cullen is asking, are dock plants good for wildlife, or would it be better to clear them and to make space for other wildflowers?
I would say so, yeah, definitely. There's a dock beetle. I just did my own garden there today. I basically just cut good. I kind of did a defined kind of a border with the lawnmower, just so people, I'm going to put up a pollinator sign just so people understand that I haven't just left it wild for no reason. But I did take out docks today. I got them out. The docks are indicative of extremely fertile soil. You'll usually see ragwort with it, nettle, stuff like that. It's kind of it's what you see on the margins of a dairy field, kind of, you know what I mean, intensely managed dairy field. But you will get dock beetles and stuff like that. But if you can get them out, dig them out, and kind of what I'd say, if you're going down that direction, we're talking this behind us at the college, the meadow there. How we manage that is it's cut. It should have been cut again this year, to be honest. I've noticed like there's some things like the self-heal and that the grass is won over, which is a problem in temperate climates. Is you do that September cut, but you get another blast of growth in spring. It should maybe cut the second time, but cut twice a year, once to twice a year, and take away the clippings. It reduces fertility over time. You're taking away all that potassium and phosphorus and nitrogen with each time, and the seed will find its way there by birds. It's already in the soil.
We're down in Closhadoulick, we are. We're down in Closhadoulick.
Yeah.
We're going to be down it all year round. It's the fourth time getting done, and we found a lovely little plaque at the back. It's like a jungle. And what's going on in there, Diversity, you know, you're in another world. It's like you're in the jungle in South Africa. Yeah, so we're gonna look by September, we'll have it up running, you know. If anyone wants to come and say, you're all welcome. Closhadoulick skill.
Okay, well that's thanks, Paul. Yeah, thanks very much, Paul. We need to mute. Yeah, thanks, Paul. And that's Closhadoulick in Coolock. They do a lot of great courses there, and it's great that you're doing that. And maybe we'll hear from that next year on our festival. So thanks very much for that. Sean, I think we're running out of time. It's really fascinating. Thanks very much to Yvonne for her wonderful presentation, and Sean for you to give us some practical advice, particularly for the cities. Thanks to you both, and we'll now go and look at what's coming for the rest of the festival. And
thanks, Owen.
Thank you. And let me set up here. Now we're need to look at yeah. So I think is Una there? Una might join me. And Una, we could talk about what's coming for the rest of the festival. And I noticed that everything is just resized. Sorry, I'm having technical issues here with Now we might just talk about where people might go to get some ideas for activities.
Yeah, so on our website, livingearth.ie, we have a whole range of activities and guides that will hopefully get you out into our living earth. There's activities there for all, suitable for all ages. From coincidentally, how to make a bee hotel, I think, is up there.
Yeah.
How to do
And
surveys.
here's another one that's from last year. Cordula, many people might remember her. She was with us last year, and she developed this one. And it's kind of cheating, but it's a butterfly flower. So for somebody who has just, if you've just got a window box or a balcony, to provide sugar for butterflies. So that's there as well. And of course, we have our guides.
Yeah, so there's guides up there on bird identification, butterfly identification, bee identification. There's some lovely guides from some of the national parks as well, where you can look at what they have living in their parks that we might not have down here in the southeast as well. So they're definitely worth a look to see what's around the rest of the country. Hopefully we can get to visit some of those sites over the next few months now. And get to see some of these things in person.
So, yeah, and let me just talk about our competition. So this is the penultimate day. So tomorrow is our last day, and we're looking at, the theme is a very general theme, biodiversity all around us. So anything related to biodiversity, or we're using the tagline biodiversity on our doorstep for the last 12 months since COVID started. And so come and share with us what you're looking at every day.
Could I share like what's in my garden?
Absolutely, Paul. If you take a photograph.
Yeah, and what do I send? Where do I send the photo to?
We have our. I'll just pop it up here now.
Thank you.
Now I'm just gonna have to mute you, Paul, because we're getting the feedback through. My voice is coming through twice. So there we are. It's you can send it to calmast@wit.ie by email, or you can send it to Facebook. It's all that is on our website anyway.
Can you put up on the screen the email?
I'll pop it into the chat, Paul.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks, Una. Okay, so you're all very welcome to pop in your photographs. Biodiversity on your doorstep. So from your gardens, it could be on your street, it could be your local parks, it could be something, you could be lucky to live beside the Blue Way or something. And please share your pictures with us, and we'll have a look at them tomorrow. And the prize again is another 2 tickets to the Lafcadio Hearn Japanese Gardens in Tramore. And there's the 2 tickets are on the way to Anne Nolan for her great entry for today. Now on to tomorrow, we're going to finish up the festival tomorrow. We have one event left, but maybe Una, you might just tell people what's been going on in the schools during the week.
Yeah, so I had the pleasure of sitting in on most of the school sessions this week, and I have to say I learned loads myself. So we started off with Dave's Jungle on Monday. So Dave up in Carlow had a menagerie, I suppose you could call it, of snakes and reptiles and insects, and he even pretended to eat actually an insect live on camera for the kids, so they loved that and learned loads and loads from him. On Tuesday and on Friday, we were joined by the team at the Atlantic Aquarium up in Galway, and we had sessions on seashells and on crustaceans. The main thing that I have to say I learned, I grew up by the sea, I live by the sea now. I did not know that there were carnivorous seashells, which absolutely blew my mind. So the kids had so many questions about sea creatures, and that was brilliant to see. We also had the National Reptile Zoo, which is in Kilkenny. They ran sessions for us. Again, snakes, turtles, tortoise, and stick insects galore, which some of the kids love, some of the kids not so much. But I think they convinced them that they're not all bad and scary, especially when it comes to snakes. And then, of course, on Thursday, we had Seal Rescue Ireland, which is based in Courtown in Wexford. We had a little tour of their tanks, where they have some seal pups at the minute that they've rescued from around the coastline. We got to see some of them and go through some of the rehab program that they put the seals through before they release them back into the wild. So that was fantastic to see. And we actually
we're going to. Sorry, sorry to interrupt, Una. I was just going to say we have some pictures from a lot of the children, but we don't have time this evening to show them. We'll hold them over to. Well, actually, no. We'll show them now. They're just they can't resist. Can't resist. So here is Seal Rescue. That shows a number of classes online. There we've had around 5,000 pupils around the southeast and further afield, right around. We've had, which is great. Now the boys from Graignamanagh National School shared these with us. Save the seals. Stop destroying the seals' homes. Seashells and save the seals. There's two seals playing away. Save our seals, SOS. Seal Rescue Ireland, both there helping them. Save the seals, please. Stop polluting, and there's more information there about pollution. And save every angelic, lovable seal. Isn't that lovely?
That's fabulous.
And
that was the message I think that came through in all the sessions for the kids, was that, you know, we need to protect the environment in order to protect the habitats for all these different creatures, no matter where they come from.
And here's St. Mary's in Care, and they have wonderful drawings there. Save the seals. Ocean is not a garbage can. Save the seals. There, that's telling you. Less plastic in the ocean, more seals. That's a lovely idea, isn't it? And then save the seals. And save our seals. A lovely picture of a seal bottling there, I'm sure. And there's another one of a seal, although I don't know if we want them with performing tricks. And there, more save the seals. So lovely pictures there from St. Mary's in Care, and that shows the wonderful impact that that the festival has had on young people. So that's really important for us, and it's important for us for us that you know what is happening with the young people and other parts of the festival. So on to tomorrow. We have at the same time at 5:30. We'll have our wrap up. It'll be a different type of a show. We'll be looking back at some of the things we have looked at during the week, and we'll be picking out the important messages from the whole festival. We'll also be joined by some special guests. We'll be over to Brussels to have a hookup with Grace O'Sullivan, who's the MEP for Munster and a Green Party, and a lifelong activist for the environment. We'll also have Kevin O'Sullivan, the environmental and science editor from the Irish Times, and we'll also have Professor Liam Dolan, who is, he was with us last year. He was professor of botany in Oxford. He's moved on to a new post in Vienna in Austria, and he'll be joining us from Vienna. And we'll also be looking at some of the activity going on on the Waterford Institute of Technology campus in Carriganore, where recently young people from Waterford planted 1,500 native trees. So we'll be taking a quick look at that as well, and we'll have the results of today's competition. Don't forget it, biodiversity on your doorstep. Email, tweet, Facebook, Instagram. Get us any way you can, and we'll hopefully be able to feature your pictures tomorrow. So once again, thank you to Yvonne Grace. Thank you to Sean Keane. Thank you, Una, for briefing us on what else is happening in the festival. Thanks to Ben and Sheila behind the scenes, keeping everything going, and trying to counter my mishaps. And again, most of all, thank you all for being with us. It wouldn't be a festival without you. And this is a community that we're trying to create, and thank you all for being part of it. So until tomorrow evening, good evening and happy International Biodiversity Day.
Thanks, Owen. Great as usual.
You know.